A 45-minute secretly recorded conversation among alleged top-tier members of the One Don gang has revealed that they suspected one of their own was providing information to the police. The conversation involving Stephanie Christie, one of the defendants, identified as Citypus, and the alleged leader of the gang, Andre Blackman Bryan, was heard today as the One Don gang trial continued in the home circuit court.
In the secretly recorded telephone conversation, a somber Bryan is heard longing to return home. He was speaking with the sole female defendant, Stephanie Christie, also called Muma.
Look, now for come on, me yard, hombre. Yeah, come on, man. Yeah, come on. Them not fire, you know.
At one point, the alleged gangsters can also be heard discussing their cronies, who have become disloyal to the criminal organization, and the alleged leader since he was detained by the police. That conversation was among Muma, Citypus, and the witness.
Yes, I mean this gun, I will have already. I know him dead, cause I go for him. Some man from Kenya did come for him, you know, but the man them coward. I can't deal with the coward people, them, you know. A termite, them a roll with. But if you touch him, you know, but them shield him, cause him and the ball have to get touched. Brown, that's for jump on some work, you know.
The prosecution witness is at this hour still on the stand as he identifies the voices in the recordings and explains the conversations.
The defendants were heard basing their suspicion on a number of arrests by the police and the line of questioning. This is how the conversation between the lone female defendant Stephanie Christie, Citypus, and the witness went.
Yeah, hear me? Yeah, hear me? Them have a direct man where I work with them here.
Hey, unot.
Fund that. Yo, work from this a bountify, you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Somebody assigned to that the program there. It's possible say them are listening or too. But that's up.
Who them a listen? Who back all them a listen?
But that can't add up.
And I like every day, everyone I will correspond. I very rarely I get certain amount of way online together. You see it? I'm more two individual chat and next two chat about sitting else.
Here with me I say. You see if them did a listen cause?
Yeah.
Them would have asked me, I don't know how them asked me. Them would have asked me about the car thing.
Them wouldn't just tell us so. Them would have direction where them have moved towards.
Miss Christie also revealed that she was questioned by an officer at the Spanish Town police station in St. Catherine. Miss Christie said the policeman asked her about Mr. Bryan's source of income and his possessions. During the conversation, she was also heard telling the men that the owner of the hardware store in Spanish Town was also questioned by the police.
Yeah, the man say 2 years, the man say, understand, say you are build a studio to his knowledge. And him say, him can skip him book and take out him receipt book where you send come buy things.
At one point in the conversation, the question was asked whether the delivery men who the alleged members of the gang had extorted weekly had reported the incidents. However, this was dismissed by Citypus, who said the drivers were not brave enough to inform the police.
The court heard several recorded conversations allegedly between a former gang member turned state witness and other alleged members of the One Don Klansman gang trial on Tuesday. The witness revealed that one of the 33 defendants on trial was communicating with recording artist I-Octane in a bid to flee the country. These recordings are being played in court for the purposes of identification and linking the alleged gang leader Andre Blackman Bryan and his 32 co-accused to a criminal network. We caution that some of the language used may be disturbing. The name of recording artist I-Octane was mentioned during a telephone conversation between the former gang member turned Crown witness and defendant Fabian Johnson, alias Crux, on Tuesday during the One Don Klansman gang trial. Johnson said, quote, "Link called the boy Octane pon the thing. He might tell him about 250. Come like a joke thing." End quote. When the former gang member questioned what he was talking about, Johnson said, quote, "Pon my thing man, the book thing." End quote. The witness then explained that he was part of a conversation with Johnson and the entertainer when Johnson had reportedly asked I-Octane to help him to leave the country. The witness claims that the entertainer said, quote, "A easy thing that," end quote, as he could arrange for Johnson to get a visa to travel with him on tour. Johnson was allegedly asking I-Octane for money that the reputed leader of the gang, Andre Blackman Bryan, told him to collect. This is the second time since the start of the trial the entertainer's name is being mentioned in court. Previously, the witness testified how he and Bryan on multiple occasions visited the artist's studio. I-Octane has since sought to distance himself from any criminal activity associated with the St. Catherine-based gang. Meanwhile, in another recording, Johnson was heard encouraging Bryan to invest in cocaine distribution to uplift the organization. Bryan was disconnected and Johnson went on, telling the former gangster about the lucrative cocaine business of which his cronies in Denham Town are part of. The court also heard of plans to purchase guns, one of which the witness said was to be used to murder a defendant, Jazeel Blake, alias Squeeze-Eye, as they thought he was working with the police. The witness said in court, quote, "Blackman said when the gun by, Squeeze-Eye must be the first one for did a fight." End quote.
In one of the conversations, a daring Citypus explained how he attempted to murder a man in front of the courthouse in Spanish Town.
I put more there and be call and say Bones I get bail in the morning.
Man, turn up at the back of the courthouse and watch them a drive with bones. Cause my friend murder him I get bail for. Half a day me turn up there. And the clerk get up in a spirit and tell them say gunman out there for kill him. That time Adams have 100 car back of him. And B say go all road cause Adams here will go on. Me say elder, a bones this you know. Alright now, this a 18 me a empty 89 before me move. So you get him?
Also in the recordings today, the alleged gangsters are heard exploring new sources of income as the gang was faced with the issue of disloyal members and a decline in their extortion activities. The alleged gang leader was behind bars at the time.
Where you there, man? Me know you frass out, man. Me a tell you dog, you don't know a better days, you see me? A better days, man. True. Cause them just a right, them nah no witness, you see me? Me need to come out the dog. You need to be a road and make the thing happy again. You not chat to them with the wholesale yet. True, me never have no number for him. We have to lift up and build up the thing. Them boy they forget touch, man. Them all out there sign peace deal. Come in like we need for load off some coke thing, you know. Cause I hit the dog them deal with.
The witness explained that Crooks was suggesting the alleged gangsters start dealing in cocaine as other criminals from Denham Town were reportedly doing.
In the Wandon Klansman gang trial, in a recorded conversation played in court today, it was revealed that the lone female defendant had a police source providing her with information for the organization. The prosecution has been examining the recordings of conversations between alleged members of the criminal network, with a former gang member turned crown witness giving further insight. Again, we caution some of the language used may be disturbing.
The former member of the Wandon Klansman gang, who secretly recorded conversations between himself and other alleged members, revealed that the lone female defendant, Stephanie Christie, alias Mumma, had her own informant within the Jamaica Constabulary Force. In one of the recorded conversations, Christie was heard saying, quote, "We have one police bridging with the down at the CIB, you know, so any little thing him kinda sure we wagwan," end quote, noting that the police had high regards for the alleged leader of the gang, Andre Blackman Bryan. She went further, saying the police gave her the description of private police vehicles and their registration plates. The former gang member replied, quote, "A good thing we have him on our side," end quote. In another recording, Christie could be heard asking the former gangster, quote, "How much instruments do we have?" end quote. The witness explained that they were talking about guns. In another instance, Christie, who is a pastor, appeared to be searching for a house to live. She said, quote, "If I even one room I get and pack up the things, just pray the thing go through smooth. Nothing a beat prayer. I ask God for protection," end quote. Meanwhile, the former gangster recalled how he and others, acting on instructions from the alleged gang leader, drove through the community of Rivoli in search of two defendants, Markham Miller, alias Ezzy, and Dwight Hall, alias Jim Brown, to, quote, "kill them," end quote. He was quick to add that the police had all that information and were driving in close proximity to the car he was in. Based on the recordings so far, it's evident that the trust among members of the alleged criminal organization quickly deteriorated, especially with the alleged leader behind bars. Alleged gangsters switched allegiance, turned on each other, and were reportedly willing to kill each other.
On day 65 of the Klansman gang trial, the alleged gangsters were heard laying bare issues facing the criminal organization, including disloyal members and money woes. They were exploring different strategies to address the issues. In this dramatization of a secretly recorded conversation with the Citypuss and the now state witness, plans were being put in place to get rid of some of their cronies. They talked of plans to smuggle a cell phone into the jail cell of alleged leader of the Wandon faction of the gang, Andre Blackman Bryan, and plans to rob a businessman of his licensed firearm to sell it back to him for $500,000.
I want hold a bar as him. I rival me here same day. Me want chat to the G, man. Me fear make weed reach the G. All a phone the man want in a dog. Me a tell Squeeze eye, him a go on like a under him foot dog. If me get a banger, how it a go reach him? From it reach Paula, me can deal with it, man. Yeah, man. Me did a tell him to dig off some money off of the road tomorrow bike. If I even thief a phone, I take one of the man them phone and me bite back. Yeah, me call the boy Peter. I go tell me say nothing nah go on. If me I go pressure him blood, cause me want to take the piece off of him. Who name Peter? Peter, a fit command. The big man there where they run a piece of money over them, man. I call me, I say, Brookie want $50,000 every week. Month end, something like that.
Also heard in court today was a conversation with the sole female defendant, indicating she was receiving crucial intel from a member of the constabulary about their investigation into the criminal organization. The witness had previously told the court that Stephanie Christie, aka Mumma, would give police information on the alleged gangsters who'd become disloyal and threatened Bryan's leadership. This morning, the court also heard Christie in a recorded conversation admitting to receiving information about the probe into the gang from a policeman.
Yeah, man, I him from a pin to a anchor tell me the things them, man. Yeah, man, cause him rate umbrella, and him a make me know say them not have nothing for him. And some know say him a come home, man. Oh, a good thing we have him on full side, man.
The witness later explained that Christie was getting information from a policeman connected with the Criminal Investigation Branch, CIB. In the meantime, the prosecution also tried to enter into evidence a voice note said to be from Citypus to the witness. But presiding Judge Chief Justice Brian Sykes intervened, saying the prosecution would have had to do more for the voice note to meet the evidentiary threshold prescribed by the Evidence Act. According to Justice Sykes, Citypus and not the witness would have been the producer of that audio. The prosecution would have had to present other evidence, including proof the device used to produce that voice note was functional.
Witness had previously told the court that Christie, aka Mumma, would give police information on the alleged gangsters who had become disloyal and threatened the alleged gang leader Andre Bryan's reign. According to the witness, that was in a bid to get some of them off the street and behind bars as Bryan prepared to be released from jail. This morning, the court also heard Christie in a recorded conversation admitting to receiving information about the probe into the gang from members of the constabulary.
Yeah, man, I him from a pin to a anchor tell me the things them, man. Yeah, man, cause him rate umbrella, and him a make me know say them not have nothing for him. And some know say him a come home, man. Oh, a good thing we have him for our side then, man.
When the prosecution asked the witness to explain what was being said in the conversation, the witness said Christie was discussing a policeman who was giving them information about investigations into Bryan. He explained that the policeman was a supporter of Bryan.
Just pulling yourself together, man. Murder, me want to murder out some man. I deal with the thing, brother. What Papa I say about a rental? Yeah, me I say, just put a network together and make one move forward. We just move. We just listen to the voice note where Big send me about Brocky. What am I say? He must be a teacher for the next. He must have a big family he must touch. Jermaine did I talk to him up. Soldier Jermaine, cause him want to step to him up. Add him to the call? No. Him say him have money to give me. Say him not owe you no money. Him a wonder if it's a thing you beg. If it's a thing you beg, him will send it class, no problem. Even I'll have one way to get Papa. Cause I hear what? Him have one Obeah. One little youth. 15-year-old. And him a work Obeah for them. And him a the Obeah man. Yeah man. Good Obeah man. And him a guard the juvenile. But juvenile always a cuss the duppy them. Be sitting. When juvenile left the duppy them, I walk up and down in our community. Me and him reason straight. And him a guide me as a said way. Cause 2 times water come search me. Carry beer search team and himself look out for them in the afternoon. Thursday, same blood time when tell me.
One of the prosecution's key witnesses giving evidence against the alleged gang leader, Andre Blackman Bryan, and 32 of his co-accused. The court heard conversations between the alleged gang leader who discussed plans surrounding gun and cocaine deals. We caution viewers may find some of the language used disturbing.
The court on Thursday heard a recorded conversation between alleged gang members of the One Don Klansman gang who were instructed by the alleged gang leader Andre Blackman Bryan to carry out a murder of not one but 2 of their cronies. Bryan allegedly gave the green light to kill the defendants Markham Miller, alias Ezzy, and Dwight Hall, alias Jim Brown, because they were suspected of switching allegiance. The former gangster now turned Crown witness gave out in court, quote, "Blackman said don't leave off of the road until someone is dead," end quote. But instead they made a detour to Lionel Town in Clarendon to purchase cocaine. The witness said he accompanied the defendant Stephanie Christie, also called Mumma, and Fabian Johnson, known as Crux, to a location, but was told to wait until they got back because the cocaine dealers didn't want a crowd. But the deal was seemingly not closed. Christie was heard saying, quote, "It's like the one where the youth feel, the one they no feel so up. I won't eat them having no, but them a say them a want really do no transaction in a night. They know if a false money are rare, you know?" End quote. Asked by the prosecution if someone died that night, the witness answered yes, but there was no murder charge of that incident connected to the indictment, so the prosecution could not go any further. Meanwhile, a brief conversation between the witness and a defendant, Jazeel Blake, alias Squeeze Eye, about the purchase of a gun revealed some of the coded words used by the alleged gangsters. Blake was heard saying, quote, "Me ask him if him not have no honor, but him say a be a young gal him have right now. Me did ask about the same 40 teeth."
He must say a them him have now. I say a beer young gal him have. So no young gal who want dog, whisper them there. Him a come on my foot. Him nah no honor. Make him come a Larry stand dog. He must say a 40 feet. Alright, do that make we link him a Larry stand and take them from him.
The witness later told the court the alleged gangsters referred to M16s as Young Girl, noting Young Girl was a symbol assigned to number 16 in the lottery game Cashpot. He also says the alleged gangsters referred to handguns as Hannah. He says the alleged gangster was to meet the firearms seller in Lauriston, St. Catherine. Teasha Clark for